Welcome to the Elevate Your Equity podcast, where we, as married busy professionals, leverage real estate investing to unlock the 3+1 degrees of freedom: health, location, time, and financial.
And today we have Mr. Casey Brown on the show. How are you, Casey?
Doing fine, sir. How are you?
I'm awesome. Thank you for coming on the show. For those who do not know Casey, after 2 years of both being in real estate sales full-time and working a second full-time job, he decided it was time to go all in with the real estate investing career. And since May of 2007, Casey's been involved in over 400 real estate transactions that range from the sale of a home for $4,000 to farms, commercial properties, and all those other things into the millions of dollars. Casey Brown is the host of an awesome podcast called the Cash Flow Pro podcast, and also the CEO of 3000 Capital. Casey, it is so awesome to have you on the show, man, and have a fellow Raise Masters, fellow mastermind group member on the show as well. We hope that you're doing awesome today, and we have a lot of stuff to explore. So before we get started, why don't you talk a little bit about what attracted you to real estate at such a young age, and how did you find real estate from the beginning?
Well, so my real estate career was kind of hatched out of necessity. There was some things going on. I graduated college with a degree in agricultural economics. I started with a firm, and the firm ended up having some financial difficulties, which obviously their financial difficulties were passed on unbeknownst to me at the time. I needed to figure out a way to make some money fairly quickly. I was able to get licensed pretty quick because I had some real estate education in college. So the state counted those courses towards my education needs for the license. And so I just jumped in head first. And I started by looking at the commissions and saying, oh, okay, I can sell a $100,000 house, make $3,000, 3%. Or if I list and sell it, it makes $6,000, right? Those commissions, which I knew I needed fairly quickly to sustain any type of livelihood. I mean, it was just me, and my wife was my girlfriend at the time. So it was just the two of us. She worked, went to school, whatever. And so the necessity was what hatched my career to begin with. And eventually that necessity led to, man, I'm pretty dang good at this. And again, I'm not touting that. I'm just saying that's what I kept telling them. I'm like, man, this is like, the more I did it, the easier it came, the more money I made. And it was just the sales part of it. But all of that was founded on one major fault. Okay. The major fault of my real estate business was I had built it as a transactional business. And a transactional business basically means that, hey, I'm making money as long as I'm transacting. If I'm not transacting, I'm not making money. Now, that's kind of like, duh, right? Well, the fault comes into play when I had a life event of a divorce. Now, that life event and a transactional business went together like, I don't know, oil and water. They did not mix whatsoever, not even near mix, right? So when I'm focused on trying to settle a divorce issue, and I'm focused on trying to make sure, and I'm now a single father half the time rather than an all the time co-father, right? So all of these life things started happening. And when these life things started happening, and as I tried to feel my way through the forest, the transactional business got put on the back burner. Well, the fact that it was a transactional business, we all know what happened. It went in the tank. I mean, I couldn't do it all as I had prior to. That's when I started saying, and then even worse, the divorce had forced me to sell a lot of my cash flowing properties. So it was a double whammy real quick. Divorce, it was actually a triple whammy. The divorce started, the argument started about kids, such and such and such. And then the triple whammy, the third part of the triple whammy was the sale of what was actually cash flowing, right? Left me with absolutely nothing except for the exact idea that cash flow was the key. I didn't really start struggling bad until the cash flow was gone. The transactional business was one thing. It was gone. But the cash flow left. I was destitute. It was horrible because now the money that kind of came to the rescue for food and electric bill and water bill, the stuff that we have to have, was now gone. That's when I realized, whoa, okay. So out of everything I just told you, sorry it took so long to tell you that, but I just feel like that's a story that leads us to exactly what the basis for my purpose in this business is to teach people how important that cash flow is. And that is what taught me. And again, the lesson that came out of that was worth far more than anything that had gone down the river.
There's so many things to take away from the story. And I have a couple of follow-up questions to this,
Okay.
but I have to just make the comment that I hope that people out there are listening. There's so much to unpack from this, Casey, that, a lot of things were going on in that story. And one for the audience is I want people in the audience to understand that real estate investing, when you first hear it, it sounds transactional. It sounds like you're going into sales and you're going to be being an agent and then transacting. And that's a very active form of business. What Casey is talking about is the light bulb came off when he realized he could buy properties and have them cash flow. This is a difference between the microwave and a crock pot. And we are talking about crock pot investing here in real estate. And there's a reason for this, because as you start building these streams of income, eventually they start out as a trickle, right? Like, Casey, you understood that even though maybe you had one or two and it was cash flowing $800, maybe $500, something like that per month, you realize that it was repeatable and you can get to a place where if you had 10 of them, now all of a sudden you've got a lifestyle paid for by your tenants, right? That off of your own metal, off of your own skill. And so I want people to understand that there's a transactional side and there's an investing side. And I think that's what Casey is trying to drive home here.
And definitely on the transactional side had been built up so high and was doing so well that truthfully, I just don't guess that the light bulb had gone off on just how important and how much we actually did rely on the cash flow from the properties. And you're right. It's the difference in the cash flow was simply the difference in the payment or the rent that came in minus the payment that was made, insurance paid, taxes paid, repairs, vacancies, all that stuff. And, and like you said, it's a trickle because it was actually to the tune of about 28 or 29 doors and none of them were making like stellar money. But when you have 28 or 29 doors that are making 300 to 350 a month net, I mean, now all of a sudden you're paying for a pretty decent lifestyle. And then the commissions were on top of that. And it just kind of all came crashing down. And it was epic to watch and suck to go through. But man,
I think one thing that I want to expand on here and two follow-up questions with this story and with your explanation here is, if I remember correctly, there was a little bit of an event that happened in 2008, and that was right around where all this is talking about. So you talked about the triple whammy, right? With, having to go through a personal situation, having all that happen. But didn't 2008, like the whole mortgage meltdown, didn't that contribute?
So the timeline of the divorce and all of that was 2015, 16. The 2008, and I'm going to be honest with you, the real estate sales business, a lot of people have a misconception that those times like 2008 were times we didn't make money. It was a little bit tougher to make money, but I'm going to tell you what, from a real estate agent standpoint, people needed an agent during those times. Okay. People were still moving. Jobs were still being taken in other areas. People were still dying and estates were needing to be settled. I mean, all of that stuff continues to go on. It's just a matter of they need an agent worse than they do when the market is like it is now. And of course, by the time this podcast airs, things may have changed quite a bit. But as we are right now, we're standing here looking down the mountain saying, hey, we're on top. There's never going to be another bad day. When in fact, I think we all kind of know we have to come down this hill at some point. Now, market triggers and stuff depend on how far we go down the hill. Will be dependent upon how far we go down the hill. But it was a struggle because I was started in 2007 selling real estate, transactional business, needed money. And when I started with the firm right out of college, this was like 2004, 2005, 2006. And then I started selling real estate in 2007 out of necessity. Then 2008 happened. And it was a lesson. And, and I'm talking about, like I've talked about on my podcast, where you're looking down a neighborhood of houses down by the military base where there's 100 houses, 80 of them are empty with grass 3 feet tall. 10 of them are tenants, and then 10 of them are the homeowners that are left or whatever. And a lot of folks don't know this. And this is a lesson too. But if a soldier is actively deployed, his real estate in the home country or in the United States cannot be foreclosed on. So we had all of these issues all at one time, but you're right. It was all happening. But at the same time, people still needed an agent and you had to market yourself as such.
That's great. Good to know. But the same thing, what I wanted people to understand from this as well is that you realized, even as you were making a whole bunch of money in the real estate business, that it was really the ownership side. It was really the cash
The
flow side
ownership
that
side.
made
Yep.
a lot of the difference. And that's what hurt the most. So my question to you is, you were on this ownership side and you lost everything. It must have been hard for you to pick yourself back up and rebuild, a little bit defeated to try to do this in a brand new market, because having that mindset, knowing that you're heading into this is going to be a slog, it's going to be something like that you're slowly adding streams of income to make a waterfall. And the
Yep.
key is slowly. You refine your systems a little bit. You get into a place where you know your criteria and you get it happening. And pretty soon you can set up a very scalable business doing it this way. Now, what I want to do is I want to shift a little bit now into your superpower, right? Obviously, you have a knack for sales and converting people. And I think that what I'd like to do is start off by kind of going underneath the hood here for where you got your affinity for doing sales. Because I see that you in college did a little bit of real estate investing. That's what got you introduced to the space. But then you
Yep.
kind of just like fell into it, you leaned into it, especially on the sales side. And that's something that sales is arguably something that it can be taught, but a lot of people have an affinity to it and they just hit the ground running, which it sounds like you did. Tell us a little bit about how that skill came naturally to you or what shaped that.
Well, part of that was shaped from a lot of different angles. My father was a salesman, so I grew up kind of witnessing him. He was a cattle salesman, which explains a little bit about why I ended up with an ag economics degree. And so, with that being said, I always watched him and then my broker when I actually came on to become a salesman and in the sales business. One of the very first things my broker told me, he said, listen, when somebody, you have to get on their side. Okay. You always need to have your arm around the client and you're pointing back at whoever's not doing what they're supposed to do. You're on their side. You and them are looking back in the same direction. And while that's a really easy way to put it, sometimes it's more difficult than it sounds, but you're doing a number of different things when you first do that. Being on their side, you're building trust. You and this other person against the world. You're building trust because they know that you're on their side. Okay. And you're not going to turn against them. And then you have to continually pound that into their mind that you're on their side. And that's my typical go-to at say a listing appointment. Okay. When you're looking at sales and you're at a listing appointment, you're on their side and you have to voice that. You have to say that. You don't just assume that they know that. You have to say, hey, you're the boss. This is what I think. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you're going to tell us what we do. And once you voice that and then they realize that because people want control, right? I mean, that's the number one thing. And that's one of the reasons why people shy away from doing real estate investing the way that we do it from a syndication perspective is because they want control. If they've got $100,000, they would rather go buy their $300,000 property, put their 100 into that, and then they're in control. And that's why it's so important for us to mold who we bring into our deals, because the last thing that you want to do is bring somebody into a deal that then wants to come in and start controlling everything, because that's our superpower is being able to control and make money for them. And that makes it truly passive for them. Again, once you jump that hurdle and you're on their side and you get your arm around their neck and you say, all right, buddy, let's go. Let's make it's me and you versus them. And once that person feels that, the rest of it's just cake, honestly. I don't ever want my clients to listen to that and say, hey, that's what he's doing, because I genuinely do care about using what I know and what I have, the people that trust me with their business.
Right. It seems like you're taking on multiple roles with this, Casey, because you have the experience as an advisor. So you're like kind of coaching, but you're also friend is the feeling that I get, right? You have to know when to juggle those two roles, because some people respond stronger to one role more than the other.
They do.
And that's something that at least I've been finding, that you have to walk that balance, right? Like some people really like it that you're just friends, like they like that relationship and then they trust you.
Yep.
Some people like the authority aspect, then the friendship develops from there. Oh, go ahead.
You also have that person that you get an appointment with, you go and sit down with, you talk with, and they never call you back because you had something else on your mind and it didn't feel genuine, or you were thinking about what's for dinner and it didn't seem genuine. So it's basically, it takes all of the gray area out of the sales world, and it's black and white. Either you win and you get that person's trust and it's you and them versus the world, or you came off as having, again, being a phony. And that guy really doesn't care about me. He just cares about his paycheck. Okay.
For sure.
And so the pointers that I would give to people is, so many people just want to jump in and they can't figure out why they can't get sales. They just want to go up to people and be like, hey, trust me, I love you. Can I help you sell your house?
Yeah.
And that doesn't work. I mean, just be genuine, just be you, be a person, be human. Go up. Hey, somebody needs something, pick them up, hand them your card. Hey, you never know when it's going to come back around, because the people that are broke today, I was one of them, aren't going to be broke in 2 or 3 years.
Right.
And the way you treat them when they're down will always be remembered.
It's good advice. Really, really good advice. You mentioned that usually if sales don't happen, let's say that you're calibrated, you're great at building trust, you understand this person, you weren't present, or you weren't paying attention to them, or at least they got that impression.
Yep.
But you really were honestly trying. What are some of the top reasons that you can say that some people fail at converting or at sales, even if they're trying their hardest?
So, there's an old term, and I heard it just the other day: scared money don't make no money, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you, broke don't make no money either, because your mind is everywhere else. Until you decide that, hey, I'm going to put all this other stuff that's going on in my life to the side. And that's hard to do. It's very difficult to do. It's not something that came to me real easy. And then in a small town like we're in as well, and I don't know if it's a Southern thing or if it's an everywhere thing, but once you get down, people expect you to stay down. They don't expect you to rise from the ashes and say, hey, here I am, let's go. What I'm getting at, and I say all of that to say that when you have to put everything else to the side and you have to compartmentalize all of it and push it back and say, okay, hey, broke is behind me right now. I know it's still here. I'm not oblivious to the fact that I'm still broke, but I'm not worried about it. I'm worried about making this customer happy and making sure that either A, the investment goes good, the underwriting is correct because we're focused on it, that kind of stuff, all the way to, hey, I'm here to help you sell your house. So any type of scenario where somebody needs you, everything else has to be put to the back.
Yeah, this is such great advice. I love all of this. I love every minute of it, because I can tell that a lot of this is wrapped up by a backdrop of mindset. I mean, all these things that you're saying right now, it's very easy for you to say them. And I don't mean this in a bad way. It's easy for you to say them because you've experienced it and you've had to go through 100%. It yourself, right?
Yep.
And while you were talking too, one scene that came up in the movie Super Troopers. Have you seen the movie Super Troopers? There's a scene in there where I think it was the police guy, not the highway patrol, the good people, where the bad cops, they were like, desperation is a stinky cologne.
There you go. Hey, man.
If you can sense
repels that, everything.
Absolutely.
It repels everything. Now, I do, just for credit, I've obviously since remarried. The woman that I married was at the time. So I do have to give some certain accolades to the people that were around me, some really close friends, and a really good woman that were around me during some of those times when everything was just kind of falling apart, if you will. So, and I say that to come back to the mindset. The people that you surround yourself with are like, they're an integral part of how you get things figured out, whether you're starting over, whether you're first getting started, or whether you're in the middle of whatever, but you are the average of your closest 5 friends. Okay. Mm-hmm. And if your closest 5 friends are drunks, do stupid things, and constantly depressed and never going anywhere, eventually you're going to fall into that pit. But like Richard Branson says, look at the people he surrounds himself with. People have masterminds at his island. Why he's there. So what I'm getting at is he's surrounding himself by all kinds. And the people that are paying to be in masterminds that come to that island, I mean, again, I say all of that to say that the people that are around you during those times, as important, if not more important than your mindset.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I think that it's worthwhile for people out there to do an actual audit. And I've actually had to go out in there and start eliminating people from my circle. And it's a really painful thing to do. It's not
Grant
pleasant.
Cardone says it's the hardest thing to do in the 10X
it really
process.
Is. But in order to really be serious about where your life is headed, if you make audits, like the amount of energy that you can relieve yourself from by eliminating people in your life that aren't providing positive energy to you, lifting you up. It's just incredible what that can do. And I think the other thing to this too is, and we're really big on this, is a spouse is really important, because that is one, if it's not one of the average people that you spend the most time around, then there's an issue. So that's one thing that you can have direct control over, or at least you should, or have an active participating role in it to work on it and make it better so that you're both improving at the same time.
My wife is not overly involved in the business end of things. She doesn't really have time, for one. But the fact of the matter is that she is so good at handling the other stuff, from shuffling kids to and from soccer, from shuffling kids to and from baseball, from all the way down to the way she puts the socks in the drawer when she puts them up. All of that stuff has value outside of the actual business part of building, because, you know, think about, like I said, all of a sudden one day turned around and now I was a single father half the time. I might as well have been. Then you think, okay, well, you've got the other half the time. Well, no, you got the other half the time to worry with actually getting divorce completed. So,
and like, there's so many things too that your spouse can help you with, either actively or passively. You know, having the support of a spouse to be able to give you the time, the physical, the mental, the energy space to do what you want to do with your investment portfolio is super important. So I think that that's a really good thing. Casey, getting back to sales and conversion, let's say that someone is just starting out, right, and trying to either get actively involved on the active side of real estate investing, or maybe on the passive, however you want to take this. What advice would you have for them that don't consider themselves salespeople, but yet know that that's a space they want to lean into? Like, where can they work? Other than building up the network and working on mindset, do you have any practical tools or any advice you want to give
well,
them?
the first thing that you have to do is you have to make a decision. Are you going to be an active investor, or are you going to be a passive investor? And you need to look at that in two different ways. Do you actively want control of, are you a control freak is what some people call it. Are you a control freak? And if you are, you most likely need to look at being on the GP side. If you are saying, hey, no, grandmama passed away, left me this $300,000, and all I want to do is I just want to put it somewhere so it's safe, and I just want to collect distributions from it. I'm going to go on back to my engineering job, or I'm going to go back into the medical field, and you just send me a check. So depending on, you have to decide what type of person you are, because as an active syndicator, I can assure you, if you are a control freak, you will not be investing in my deals, period. And there's questions designed around the idea that I just don't want people like that in my deal, because we're actively trying to make decisions for the people that said, hey, here's my 300,000. I'm going back in the field. We can't have you then in here sticking your nose and everything, trying to figure out, why haven't you fixed the Coke machine downstairs? Well, by the time we have an hour discussion about it, we're actively work. So what I'm getting at is, if you're a control freak, stay away, go on the GP side. If you are actively investing and just want to be an active investor, come on in. That basically, now you have to define what part of the GP side they want to be in. If they're big money people, and again, as a syndicator, you have to be careful who you bring in, even on that side, because the wrong mojo on that side can really poison the water. You have to understand that as an active syndicator, we're always assessing our situation. We're risk analyzers, both in the deal and on the logistics and the metrics of what's going on the GP side. And we're constantly walking that tightrope. So for somebody that wants to lean into the space, you have to decide which side you're going to be on, and you have to go with it. If you're a control freak, you're a control freak, don't go into somebody's deals in LP, because it's just going to do nothing but piss you off. You're going to be mad all the time. You're going to be madder than you are to begin with all the time. Go in on the GP side, start exploring that and figuring out what your superpower is. Hey, I can do investor relations for X percentage of the GP side. I'll take care of all the investor relations. I've got a group of buddies I can bring in. Hey, man, let's roll. But you have to decide where you're at. And you have to know that us as active syndicators, to put an entire deal together, you have to understand that we're at the top, okay? We're not bringing you in so then we can start taking commands and doing what you want us to do. So you have to find your place. You have to decide where you want to be, because you can actively put a deal together. If that's you, go put a deal together. You be the guy at the top and be done with it.
I love that, because the question I had for you was, how do you get sales incorporated into starting out? But I think what you're hinting at here is that it's probably best if you're not a salesperson, don't do sales, right? Like just do something else that fits you.
Figure out what you are and what you
Mhm.
want. Figure out your goals, because that's so much so. Everybody talks about defining an avatar. Define yourself first before you worry about who you're going to sell to. Define what you want. And once you figure out what you want, then you can start figuring out how to get it through getting on their side in sales, bringing it all together.
Yeah, man, that's awesome advice. I love all of this. This has been great, man. But what we're going to do here is we're going to wrap up a little bit because we're getting closer to the end of the show. We're going to head into our rapid round, which is the same 5 questions that we ask every one of our guests. So we're going to rapidly ask them to you. Okay. And hopefully we can get them answered in a 30-second time span or something like that. And then we'll move on to wrap up the show. Okay?
I'll do my best. You might have to cut me off, but let's go.
You're good, dude. Number 1, what book has had the biggest impact on you and why? And we ask that it not be the Bible or the Purple Bible, which is Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
That's what I always
we get that a lot.
I want to say Who Not How right now. Simply because, again, just it's right there in the title, Who Not How. And you have to get out and forge relationships. Figure your place and where you want to be and go out and forge relationships.
Love it. There's also one thing I wanted to add on to this that you maybe not even noticed you said. You said you wanted to say for the book, Who Not How right now. And that word that you said right now is the key to everything, because you guys, as you're listening to this, what's important to you will change over time. And hopefully you're the type of person that when you see a need in your life, either identified by your spouse who can help point out your blind spots, or your mentors or your peers or people you're working with, or maybe even, a failed customer relationship or something, right? That should help point out to you what's important in your career right now. And so I just wanted to thank you for even though you didn't probably mean to say it that way. I just wanted to.
But I know it changes, man. It changes because it seems like every time I read a book, I'm like, dang, that's my favorite.
Yeah, that's right. Awesome. Number 2, if people wanted to emulate your success, what do you think is the first actionable thing that they could do to follow in your footsteps?
Define who they are. Define who they are. That's the very first thing. Because if you don't know who you are, you will have no idea how to satisfy who you want to be or who you want to be your customer.
Is there any tools out there that you can help that provides that?
I'll be honest, man. The number one tool that I think is so far underutilized, it's actually 2 things that go together. And I say this in a little bit of a fashion where I don't want to sound like a smart aleck, but it's a pencil and paper. Because so many people think, well, I thought about this. I put a lot of thought into this. No, you haven't put a lot of thought into this unless you've actually, I'm not talking about a computer. I'm not talking about a keyboard. I'm not talking about anything. I'm talking about a piece of paper and a pencil, and sit and sketch it out. Write out who you are and say, this is who I am. I know these business tactics to define. There's a lot of different psychological looks at this as well that you could emulate any of them, and you can put any of them on a piece of paper and just figure out who you are. And again, I hate to sound like a smart aleck, but pencil and piece of paper are the 2 tools that I think are so far underutilized our business, because it creates so much stuff between those ears. It gets so much of that stuff up there moving when you're actually having to formulate it into
written word. You're manifesting it into the outside world. I love that. Yeah.
And totally if you don't have a pencil and paper or don't have access to a pencil, a computer and a keyboard is a decent secondary place. Man, I don't know.
It's worth the investment. It's worth the investment. Let's put it that way. For the $2 or $3 it's going to cost you to get those 2 things.
That's my answer. I really firmly believe that.
All right. Number 3, what is one tool, process, or hack in the last 3 months that's helped you save time and or effort?
Simplifying. Do away with all of the stuff that's meant to make your life easier. Then you have to figure out a way to fit all of those things together. And the big thing right now is automations. And I think so many people want to scale before they're ready. And I'm guilty of it too. I'm absolutely not acting like I'm any better than anybody else. I am guilty of it as well, but you have to simplify. Rather than worrying about putting all of these lists of investors into funnels and all of this, just send them an email. Sit down.
Yeah, how about calling them? How about calling them? How about
Yeah.
building a connection? How about doing the actual work that matters?
Get on the phone and create a relationship, because You can't create scalable relationships with people until you've created a base. And there's a lot of old stories about building a house on sand versus building the house on solid ground. And so simplify.
Yeah, I love it. Just real quick, I read an article earlier today, actually, that said that there actually is productivity traps out there, Casey, where people think they're being productive by systematizing and automating. But what ends up happening is you're just opening up another variable, right? Like
it's unbelievable.
Because
you're opening up another path to your bank account to zap it
exactly.
once a month.
That's right. But you're also like adding extra pieces and yeah, you know, you're automating the process so it goes smoothly in, but you're basically allowing extra things to come into your life. Even though they're supposed to be automated, things don't always work out that way. And you're just adding automation on top of automation. And what's actually important, right? And that's the question, to simplify and get straight to it. I think that's good advice. So anyway, we got to move on. Number 4, if the people you know had to describe you with one word, what do you think that word would be?
Passionate. And that's something that no matter what you do, when you start into something, a lot of people start, marriage is one thing that a lot of people, they feel like they've gotten too far down the path to say, oh, I just don't want to do this. And they end up in a terrible situation later on in life. And so if you have those feelings on anything you do, I don't care if you're getting ready to get married. I don't care if you're getting ready to start a new business. I don't care if you're getting ready to move in with your boyfriend or move in with your girlfriend. I'm talking about life events now, obviously, but you know, you have to feel it in your depths that this is the right move for you, and then go into it be passionate about it. And that's what I am. I mean, I'm a passionate perfectionist, and those two things probably going to lead me to have a heart attack someday, but that's what I am.
I think the passion and the intention that you bring is authenticity. I think that, you know, once you know who you are, like you said, that's kind of the word that ties together everything we've been talking about, right? Is you find out who you are, find out what you're passionate about, and then, you know, be that person. That's the authenticity.
And I heard something a long time ago is, if don't trust your friends that don't cuss. Okay. And the only reason I'm not cussing is because we're obviously on a professional podcast, but you know, I have a tendency to tell people how it is. I mean, like, you know, I am who I am. You are who you are. Just get it figured out or don't, whatever, but don't stand in somebody else's way because you can't get it figured out. And that's just the end of it.
That's very well said. All right. Last question. What small thing do most people not know about you?
A small thing that maybe people don't know about me is my favorite thing to do while I work out is to watch people freestyle rap.
I love that. Do you think there's a TikTok future in that?
I think there's an everything future in that. Again, rap music is my thing. So I know I'm just like old country. We grew up on a farm and all that kind of stuff. And it's difficult to say that, you know, hey, but it's an art. It's an art form that I think my parents never did really understand. And it's like the old white guy doesn't understand why. Well, I can't even understand them. Why is that? I'm like, no, man. Hey, that is art. That is art.
Yeah, they're very, very talented. Like, I didn't get it back when I was younger, but I'm starting to respect it more and more, especially like listening to some of the older stuff from the late 90s that I was young and didn't understand, like listening to some of the classics like
Eminem, and you know, and you learn a lot about, part of what you learn from it is you learn a lot about what's going on in other people's lives.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, well, I can't understand why this, or I can't understand why that. Well, man, just listen to them. Just stop and listen.
Yeah. And put yourself in their shoes, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, you know,
the story they're telling.
There is a certain percentage of people out there that feel ways that you think is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not going to change the way they feel unless you take action and get to the basis of what they feel. And there's a lot of that goes on in this country. Just stop and listen.
For sure.
Stop talking.
We need some more listening in our society for sure. And hey, man, well, I wanted to thank you for your time. I also want to be respectful of it too. And before we go, why don't you tell the audience a little bit more about how they can find out what's going on in your world? How can they reach out?
The very best way to find out what's going on in my world is through my podcast. And you can find that at www.cashflow.pro. There's no .coms, no nothing like that, but cashflow.pro. go there and check it out and listen to what we've got going on. You can also, like, if somebody is like, hey, something really resonated with me about what you said, I want to talk to you more about selling real estate or investing or anything like that. It's Casey at 3000capital.com. And we're an open book, man. We're glad to help however we can. And my guy, Derek here, I can tell you, if you're listening to his podcast, you've already leveled up, because this guy right here has got some things figured out in life and he's at a place in life that a lot of us are envious of. I know his lifestyle and the way he lives, the way they do, is something that I'm extremely envious of. And so my guy here, I can promise you, you're not going wrong by continuing to listen to what he's bringing to this world. So,
hey, thank you so much, Casey. Man, that really means a lot. Thanks for shouting out to me as well in the closing moments here. But Casey, dude, it's been a pleasure having you on. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And for you listeners out there who have listened to this point in the show, I want to thank you as well. Please make sure you go in wherever you're listening or watching this broadcast, this content. Please engage with us. Like, comment, subscribe, do whatever you can so that we can appease those algorithm gods and we can get more and more ratings and get ourselves up to expose to more people, because we want to continue bringing on incredible people like Casey and help share their message out to elevate the energy of the world. So take care, you guys. This is Derek. We're signing off. We'll see you guys soon. See ya.